I'm going to get going, and I want to give what we thought would be useful is to give a little bit of the background of the Stanford Center for Professional Development, because we have been around for a really long time. And so it started in the 50s with Fred Terman, who was the Dean of Engineering at the time. And he is also considered somewhat the father of Silicon Valley. So he had this idea that it was important for working engineers in the area to be able to continue their study of engineering while continuing to work. And so he founded the HCP program, or the Honors Cooperative program, which continues today. He founded that in the 50s. And what this was, as I said, is a way for mostly local companies and people working at local companies in the Bay Area to continue their advanced studies on a part-time basis with Stanford. And so obviously how those courses were delivered has changed a lot over the years. And in the beginning, we had a television network that was literally broadcasting to companies within a 50-mile radius of Stanford. And so people would go watch TV with some of their colleagues and follow along with the lectures, and then assignments would be mailed out or hand-delivered. And in some cases, they would come on campus to take actual courses if they had that ability. That obviously evolved a lot over the years, and it went from a broadcast network to a satellite network. And then, of course, in the 90s, it began to move online through the internet. And by the late 90s, I believe we were delivering our first fully online master's degree through electrical engineering through the internet. And of course, it's evolved a lot from that since. And I think starting in the early 2000s, we stopped broadcasting over television networks or satellite networks, and now it's 100% online. And so today, everything is delivered over the internet. But it is a really interesting and long history. And the other thing I'll say is that in addition to the HCP students, these honors cooperative or part-time master's students, we also have non-degree students. So these are, and we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, these are students potentially like you who are working professionals who are not applying for a degree at Stanford, but are interested in taking a single course or a few courses just to fill gaps in their knowledge or to pursue an accredited graduate certificate. And we'll talk a little bit more about that opportunity. Now, obviously, with the move online, we've also evolved the kinds of offerings we can provide to learners around the globe. And so this is a kind of a brief overview of some of the offerings. We're really going to be just talking about those on the end there in the yellow and gray. But in addition to those credit-bearing, we have offerings for professional learners that are more probably what you think of when you think of online learning these days. So these would be self-paced classes. Maybe each course is 6 to 10 hours, and you put together 4 or 5 of them to earn a professional certificate. It's not for academic credit. It's very usually self-paced, and sometimes it's something that you would do maybe with some of your colleagues at work. And so these could be things like product management. I saw a question about the genomics program. So we have a course on genetics as well. And so these are generally produced by, the content is created in collaboration with Stanford faculty. And these are usually on cutting edge topics, but for the most part, they're not of the same rigor as the graduate courses. These are really designed for working professionals who need to just fill a small gap or update a soft skill. What we'll be talking more about today are these credit-bearing programs. And Jonathan and I will be repeating this. This is a really unique opportunity through Stanford. So this is not an extension program. These are the same classes. And so again, in this yellow, you have the opportunity to take individual classes at Stanford remotely alongside the on-campus students, and you would earn a Stanford transcript. And if you take several of those courses, you could earn a accredited graduate or undergraduate certificate. In addition to that, as I mentioned, and this is really where this whole thing began, is Stanford, the School of Engineering does offer some degrees that you can complete part-time and or remotely. So we'll go in a little bit more detail about this. We do not offer the full portfolio of Stanford classes, School of Engineering classes online. It's always a select smaller subset of those, but there are some degrees that you could complete fully online if you carefully sort of planned your program of study. So I'm sure I see there are already a lot of questions coming in. we'll get to those at the end, but I do want to give a little bit more detail on how these credit-bearing courses work. And we can come back to some of those professional programs. I see a few questions that come in. Happy to answer some questions about those as well. So these are, again, I want to emphasize, this is not an extension program. These are the same classes, not even the same material, literally the same class. So the course is scheduled in one of the rooms on Stanford's campus that have cameras built into it. And the lectures are recorded, then they're posted to our learning management system. And the expectation for remote workers, for working professionals who wouldn't be able to attend the lectures live anyway, is that they would watch those lectures at their convenience. You can live stream it, but in most cases, there's not two-way audio and video with the lecture classroom. In some cases there is, but in most cases there isn't. And the reason being is that we have created this program with working professionals in mind, and even though this is often requested, very few students are able to take advantage of that because maybe you have a job 9 to 5 or you're in a very different time zone. So you would watch those lectures at your convenience. You would follow along with the class. You're going to be following a 10-week quarter, right, as Stanford does. You would attend office hours online. So how many office hours are online will depend on the size of the class. A really big lecture class with lots of TAs will be able to offer more sessions online. A smaller class may only have an instructor and no TA, in which case it may be by appointment only. All your assignments would be able to be submitted online through various platforms. You would have access to discussion boards like Piazza or Ed Discussion or Slack or something like that to allow you to connect with the teaching team and other students. We also have a dedicated Slack channel for our students where you wouldn't ask course questions, but you could ask logistical questions. And then for exams, you would nominate an exam monitor. This would be someone like if you're working and you're coming into the office, in most cases it would be something like an HR representative or a supervisor. If you aren't coming into the office, it could be something like a local library or a local university or community college that might offer a testing service. So if it's someone at work, then likely you'd be able to do that, for free. If you have to rely on a service, then there will likely be an additional charge that would be to that service and is not part of kind of what we're talking about when we get to tuition at the end. It is important that that exam monitor is someone who can deliver that exam to you in person. The goal is to recreate as closely as possible the experience that students on campus are having, right? And they would be responsible for making sure you are aware of the Stanford's honor code and the rules for the exam, and that you're following the time limits. But they would want you to do that in person, then we would coordinate with them to get the exam from them. And finally, how are you accessing all this stuff? For the quarter that you're enrolled, you do receive a Stanford email and login credentials that allows you to access all these resources in addition to electronic resources through the library. That email and login credentials are only active during the quarter you're enrolled. And we'll go over a little bit in more detail, but you don't have to be continuously enrolled if you're pursuing a certificate. So if you were taking a class this summer and then decided you needed to wait 2 quarters and take another one in the spring, your email and credentials would be inactive in between. I think that's the kind of core about how these courses work. I'm going to look through the questions as John presents. I'm sure there are a lot of questions about the kind of logistics. I do just, again, want to emphasize that these are the same courses. It's not an extension program, and that's really an opportunity, and it is also a challenge. And I know Jonathan's going to repeat this, so I think it's an important thing to mention again and again, because it's a huge opportunity, because there really aren't many programs like this where you are taking the same class that is happening on campus. And you can do this without having to go through the full complicated admission process to being admitted as a master's student. But it is not for everybody, because one, these classes most of the students in these classes are going to be full-time students, and they're going to be able to dedicate almost 100% of their time to their studies. You are going to be working at the same time, most likely. You're going to be working and may not have that time. You're going to be juggling a lot of other priorities. That can be a real challenge. Some learners don't want, kind of the full, rigorous, deep foundational or theoretical knowledge. That's not what they need. So they're more interested in maybe just learning the latest tool for machine learning. Whereas these courses really are academic, graduate level courses, and in some cases, the higher level really for PhD students, where you're kind of learning the theoretical or foundational underpinnings of what you're doing. You're really if you're going to take a machine learning or even some of our computer science courses, other computer science courses, you're probably going to be writing proofs. You're going to probably really be digging into the mathematical foundation. So we find that there are a lot of learners who often our learners are people who are already doing this work at their companies, but they don't have the theoretical foundation. So they're really coming back to get that deeper understanding so they can apply that to the work that they're doing. Similarly, we see a lot of people who are working programmers, but maybe they have a background in math and they're self-taught in programming, or they've taken 1 or 2 courses, and now they really want to flesh that out because this is what they're doing professionally. And they're not interested in going back to get a master's. They just need to fill a few gaps. We have a lot of people who have PhDs already, but they finished it 15 years ago. And some of this research and these classes weren't available when they were pursuing their master's or their PhD, and now they're coming back to fill in that gap. But again, it's not for everybody. They're very rigorous classes. You're alongside full-time students, which can be a challenge. It's going to be on a quarter system. But for many people, this is a huge and really rare opportunity. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jonathan. And John, I'm going to jump it to the next slide. And here we go.
That's great. Thank you, Pax. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Graduate Courses and Programs Information session. My name is Jonathan Notman. I'm the Senior Director of Student Services at Stanford Center for Professional Development. I've been at Stanford 15 years approximately, and so I have a great deal of knowledge in each of the programs and courses that we offer, including the application process and some of the things that, good information, what would be considered important for you to know about courses and programs and how you can be successful in that respect. So one of the things I wanted to quickly mention is, backing on to what Pax was saying, this is a unique opportunity. These are world-class faculty, world-class courses, and it's not very many universities that offer the opportunity, particularly for what we call the non-degree program, for students to almost, you've maybe completed your undergraduate education, you may be considering some graduate programs or courses, and to kind of dive in and almost test drive a number of courses without committing to a full-time program. Obviously, to do so, you need to apply and qualify to undertake each of these courses or programs because they are credit-bearing. Having said that, the application process is not as rigorous, but I'll come on to that in a second. So some of the key considerations for success for the graduate courses and programs. Most important thing that we say to students or prospective students or applicants who are thinking about taking some courses coming up is know about your key deadlines for each quarter. We're on a quarter system. Stanford works for quarter system, 10 weeks. And the pace of each particular quarter is kind of fast compared to the normal semester system that you may be used to. So it's important to know, obviously, the key deadlines, when to enroll, when instruction starts, when you may be able to drop out of a course, when your exams are, when your homework deadlines are. So those are kind of the obvious things. It's like make sure that if you are considering courses and programs, that you prepare yourself for the rigor and pace of an academic quarter and be aware that deadlines are kind of thick and fast. If you are a working professional, be aware of that. Prepare yourself for approximately 15 to 25 hours of coursework per week. Certain courses can be a little less than that, some courses a little over that. And I think the most important thing to kind of get an understanding of commitment that you need to undertake each week on the course that you may select is to really dig in and have a look at the course syllabus, maybe have a look at some samples of courses that have been completed in the past. So you kind of get an understanding. As always, reach out to us. We can really give you a good idea of, how many lectures you'll have, information sessions, the structure of the homework exams, and just the general rigor that you'll have to undertake. Certainly as you're a working professional, you want to make sure that you can commit to this and be successful. What's also important as well is if you are a working professional and very busy and you're thinking about undertaking some courses or programs, is, make sure that you have that support network in place, whether it's through co-workers, through your manager, through your family. If you are committing to the time required for this, please make sure that you have the support infrastructure in place so that you can adequately and do service to the course that you're taking and be successful. The last thing that we want is for you to be overwhelmed, not have a good experience, but just make sure that you know what you are committed to and that you're able to do it. So it's like checking the boxes. Yes, I can get the time. Yes, I'm quite supportive. Yes, I understand the amount of hours of coursework required. So these are things that you must go through that and understand what you're committed to. And then obviously there's what I think is important as well is if you can, and at the time, is attending quarterly online orientations and social fixes. These are valuable resources where you can really get a good idea of what it's like to study at a distance, what it's like to take a Stanford course, what it's like to work through a quarter system that you may not have been experienced before, and listen to and understand from not only staff but students that are actually currently students and know exactly how these programs and courses work, and can give you some valuable insights into what it takes to be successful and enjoy the course. So if we move to the next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned a little earlier on, as Pax did as well, we have 2 graduate programs. One's called the non-degree program, what we call NDO, and the other is called the Honors Cooperative Program, HCP. Now, the first one, the non-degree program, is as it says. You're not committing to a degree. It's your ability to either take individual courses for credit or courses towards a graduate certificate. I'll talk a little bit about each one. So when you're applying for the non-degree program, that's you, as I said, taking individual courses or a sequence of courses that might lead to a certificate. You would be considered a non-degree or a non-matriculated student. You would apply during any quarter. You don't have to apply in the fall. You can take or apply during any of the 4 academic quarters, being autumn, winter, spring, and summer. So there's no need for you to wait for a certain academic quarter to apply. It's a very simple application. It's online. It's not as rigorous as a full-time degree application. It's basically, completing a little bit of information about your background, academic, professional, state purpose, and then providing things like transcripts so we can see if you're a good fit, qualified to take certain courses. Obviously, as I mentioned, these are credit-bearing courses, and so there is an application review process. With applications, you obviously have to meet the stated requirements. So each course is different. They will have certain specific application requirements. Some will just require an undergraduate degree with a certain grade point average taken in a certain discipline. Some courses will require that plus prerequisites because the course team know what you need to have in your locker to be successful. Again, it's a flexible application system, so you can apply at any point in time. If you take courses in between, you might take a course during autumn and then jump back in spring. If you take other things, we can be flexible and update your application in that respect. And we're what you call we describe you as a non-continuous student. So as you're taking courses, we're taking your application and applying that to each one that you select. So it's not a case of you're applying and then you're getting blanket approval for every course you take. It doesn't work like that. So your application is reviewed for each course you select. You don't need to submit an application for each one. Once you submit it once, we have it's good news. But we will reflect upon the application for each course that you take, and there is a review process for each one. So we also, in the non-degree option program, we have something called graduate certificates. These are accredited non-degree programs. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, they're typically 3, 4, or 5 courses you need to complete in a sequence or in a depth or area. It might be artificial intelligence or a similar subject. That will lead to a certificate or a credential once you complete it. Now, with the graduate certificates, as I said, a certain number of courses, they can be core, they can be elective, depending on which of the graduate certificates that you select that you want to pursue. But the common denominator amongst all the graduate certificates is you must maintain a B or better in each course. Okay, so to be successful and move through the course and move through the program and qualify for the graduate certificate, you must maintain a B or better in each course. With a graduate certificate, you have up to 3 years to complete. Again, typically 3, 4, 5 courses, depending on which program you select. We are mindful that you're a working professional and may need to take a quarter off here or there. If you're not required to enroll every quarter, you can take a break, but you do have a maximum of 3 years to complete the program. If you do complete the program, get a B or better in every course, complete all the core and elective requirements, again, typically 3, 4, 5 courses, you complete the certificate, you get that. You earn that credential. And I think that one of the best benefits, apart from gaining an insight into Stanford education at graduate level and experiencing world-class faculty and content, is this program is unique in that if you successfully complete courses, get the required grades, you can transfer up to a maximum of 18 units of credit from the non-degree program to the degree program. Whether it's part-time or full-time, you can transfer that over. But there is one caveat. You have to apply and be accepted into the program first. It is not assured. It does not guarantee you entry into the degree program. If you apply and are accepted and you have those 18 units of credit in your back pocket, you can potentially transfer those over to a qualified degree. Okay, that I think is a very unique, component of this program. Quickly run through the Honors Cooperative program, developed, as Pac said, back in the 1950s through Frederick Turman, Dean of Engineering. The Honors Cooperative program is basically a part-time degree. It's your ability as a working professional to undertake a degree at a part-time status. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So when you're applying, you apply as you would for a normal full-time degree through the Graduate Admissions Office. It's no different. The difference with the program is that you're studying at a part-time basis, not full-time. But once you apply, you do apply through the Office of Graduate Admissions, and depending on which degree you want to undertake, the application is then circled through to the academic department. So if you're thinking about maybe a computer science degree, a graduate degree, then that will be circled through to the computer science department for review. The department will check the details and everything for your application, and then obviously feedback to you if you have been successful. What I would encourage you to do if you are considering applying is obviously go on to the Stanford website, check out the academic department to which you will be applying. Make sure you have to familiarize yourself with the details of the program, the deadlines for application, etc. The last thing we want you to do is apply and then feel that it's not a good fit for you. So really do your research. Go on to the academic department's website, look through all the information, look through the deadlines. And again, as Pac said, if you want help, if you want support in choosing, getting information for a degree program, whatever it is, reach out to me. Myself and my team will be more than happy to help you. We're very experienced at each of these degrees and can really guide you. Ultimately, the decision is yours, but we can help you with any information.
John,
in terms of the degree.
Oh, sorry. I think your audio is cutting in and out a little bit. Do you mind if I take over a little bit from here and then?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So I just wanted to repeat a few things. And actually, John, maybe we can also just answer some. I think there are a lot of questions coming in that maybe we can just pause here for a little bit and work through some of these as well. So some people have asked about the requirements for the non-degree program. So thank you for asking about them. And next time we'll definitely add these to this slide. They're available on our website. But you do need a bachelor's degree and you need a minimum GPA. That minimum GPA it varies by department. So each department, a mechanical engineering class has a different minimum GPA than a CS class. For computer science, I think it's 3.0 in a university degree. And then you just need to meet the prerequisites for those classes as well. And so that's really what they're looking for. And I know John said a lot of this. I'm just repeating it. And so they'll look to make sure you meet those prerequisites. Some courses don't have prerequisites beyond that university degree and a minimum GPA. But of course, some of them will have more strict, you will have prerequisites like, common ones are linear algebra or multivariable calculus or some programming background. And all those GPA requirements will be listed on the course as well as the certificate pages. So you can go onto our site if you're interested in what is there. We had a few good questions about interactions with the professors. And about coming to campus. So let me say the interaction with the professor, that's going to depend a lot on the class. I'm sure if you've taken classes at a university and if you're in a 1,000-person lecture, which some of them are that big, it's harder to reach the professor because you're competing with 1,000 other students. In some of the smaller classes, however, where there are 30 or 40 students, the faculty member will be running the office hours and there will be plenty of opportunity. So it's going to depend on the size of the class. And so for that, in terms of coming in person, if you are local, I want to put an asterisk on what I say because the last 2 years have been very different, and it's possible that that will also, there may be changes in the future given sort of the new state of the world in many regards. But in general, you can come on campus for office hours if you're local, so if you wanted to attend in-person office hours, and you can come on campus for some resources. Generally, if you wanted to come on campus, for instance, to attend a lecture or to attend, if a class had an optional lab that was only available in person, that would need to be, you would need faculty permission for that. And in many cases, you can't do it because the seats are very limited and they have to give priority to the residential students. So that can vary. Again, I put an asterisk in that because that's changed a lot. I will add actually one important detail that if you're local and you're planning on coming on campus more than 3 times in a quarter, the university is asking that you upload your vaccine information into the system. So in terms of COVID-19. So that's also an important thing to note. They would be an expectation that you would be vaccinated. In terms of the master's degrees, again, I know John was already covering this, and John, I'll pause in a second and let you add some more information. Those admissions processes are through the departments themselves. So I see questions about GRE and TOEFL. Those are really going to depend on the individual department requirements. So I'd encourage you to go there and see those. So the admissions is not through us for the honors cooperative program. For the non-degree program, GREs, TOEFL, those aren't required. We just need to see your undergraduate or graduate transcripts, know that you're meeting the prerequisites, the general and the specific prerequisites for the courses. These are open to students around the world, both the master's degrees and the non-degrees programs, so you don't have to be local, you don't have to be in the US. For the master's programs, we saw some questions about, can I do some of it online and some of it in person? In most cases, yes. Again, departments have slightly different policies about how you transfer between, if you start part-time and remote, how you would transfer back to full-time, or if you start full-time, how you would move on to being part-time. In most cases, there is flexibility, which is fantastic, right? So if you start full-time residential and then you need to move to part-time, that's a real, because you got a job, that's a real opportunity. Or if you're working and you want to work for a year and then come on campus to do it full-time. Again, that's an option in most cases. I would check with the individual department for details about what you need to do in order to make that transfer, if you can make the transfer, how often. And I want to repeat as well is that this program is not available for all master's degrees at Stanford. For the most part, what we're talking about are School of Engineering programs. And in terms of the programs that you could potentially complete fully online, there are really only 5 that I would say you can comfortably complete and that are accredited for fully distance education. Those would be computer science, electrical engineering, management science and engineering, chemical engineering, and biomedical informatics. And in those cases, again, not every course is available remotely to learners. So you would also have to plan, as John emphasized, you'd have to plan your program plan carefully, both with the department and probably with us to understand what your options are. John, did you want to jump in or add anything to that?
No, I think you captured that correctly. And I think it's important that, again, as I say at the top of the conversation, that you are aware when you apply what's required in terms of not just the application process, but any additional information and where it applies, as Pax mentioned, TOEFL and GRE. Again, reach out to my team, we can guide you on that. But we want to make sure that you're aware of what you need to undertake to submit an application. And certainly making sure you select the right program and the right modality that will suit circumstances.
Thanks, John. And let me see if I'm just looking through some of the other questions. We'll talk about tuition. So in terms of the class size, it's going to vary greatly. You can go to explore courses. Maybe we can post that as well. So that will give you a general class size for all Stanford classes, not the ones that are offered through SCPD. In terms of looking at what are available remotely, you would want to go to our site and see what the options are, and then probably talk to us, because when those are offered varies a lot year to year, and we try to set that schedule up a year in advance after the departments have set up their schedules. In terms of if you pursue, Jonathan had already addressed this, but if you pursue graduate courses through the non-degree program, up to 18 units can be applied to a master's degree if you're accepted into the master's program. And and they have to be applicable, of course, to the degree. So you could, for instance, if the core, for instance, a computer science master's degree, there's a core requirements that can be satisfied if you've taken them at Stanford. So you could pursue those and take them through the non-degree program, and then they would, you wouldn't have to do them again as part of your master's degree. But again, only 18 units of those. So you could, for instance, if you completed 20 units of coursework to satisfy those 4 courses, you would have satisfied those 4 courses, but you would only get 18 of those units to count towards what I believe is, and I would double check, 45 units to earn the master's program. Jonathan, is there anything else you would want to add there?
No, I'm good for the moment. Thank you.
Then maybe I'll move. Do you want to talk a little bit about tuition?
Sure. Yes, I can do that. So for academic year 22-23, if you are considering enrolling in the non-degree program as a starter, the tuition remains unchanged, I'm pleased to say, this academic year 22-23. It's $1,352 per unit of credit. Now, that's not per course, that's per unit of credit. So if you're undertaking the 4-unit course, that's a total of $5,408. Obviously, the tuition includes, access to materials, access to, the course. It doesn't require any additional expense on your part unless you really wanted to purchase textbooks that might aid you, etc. In terms of a graduate certificate, if you were to look at that as an option, you're undertaking 3, 4, 5 courses, whatever it is that's required for the one you'd like to take, it's usually between 12 to 20 units to complete the certificate. So you should present that in terms of the expense, the tuition expense for that particular certificate. Again, we want to let you know this information because if you are planning on a budget or what kind of expense that you need to incur for these courses, then you're aware of that. I know a lot of you seek reimbursement for your employer, so we want to let you know what the cost is. Some of you may have a full tuition benefits plan for your employers, so at least you were able to have that discussion with them to plan the budget for you and taking courses for academic year 22-23. In terms of tuition for the degree programs, again, we've got 3. We can talk about it, I think, a future date, but 3 kind of bands of tuition depending on how many courses, how many credits you take. So it's kind of a little bit different than what we're discussing right now. And again, the tuition for the degree program also varies on whether you're a part-time or full-time program. Obviously, the higher workload you take, the higher tuition, lower tuition. So we just wanted to kind of give you a quick insight into what you should expect in terms of tuition if you're planning for courses 22-23.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm going to jump back to this earlier slide just because they were still getting a couple questions. So in terms of the graduate certificates, there are questions. If I meet the prerequisites, can I expect to get a seat? So yes, if you meet the prerequisites, you apply and there's a seat available, the expectation is that you should be able to take the class, right? There can be exceptions to that, and classes can close, there can be limited seats, et cetera, et cetera. You're not admitted into a graduate certificate per se. Your application will then be reviewed. It's reviewed on a course-by-course basis. So you're approved to take courses is a better way to think about it. So you would take a single course, then you would take another course, and they would review your application again, your transcripts, and see if you meet the prerequisites. Someone asked, they had a master's degree but no transcript. Would that still allow them to take it? We would ask you to submit your undergraduate transcripts so we can verify those. And then there's an opportunity in the application to explain any additional work you've done, whether that's professional, self-study, or a research program. And then that is also forwarded along to the department so that if there's additional context for them to understand, I don't have the specific requirement for Python programming as an undergraduate, but I've been working for 7 years as a Python programmer or something like that. And so I feel I strongly meet this requirement, and they would take that into consideration. Once you've begun successfully completing classes, they'll also, of course, take into consideration your past performance in classes and in terms of approving you for the next class. Let's see here.
I see another question here, Pax, on what's the difference between the credit-bearing courses and courses in the graduate certificate? Essentially nothing. They're the same. It's just your ability, credit-bearing courses you can take on an individual basis. That's just your ability to, or opportunity to take individual courses that might be of interest to you for a specific reason. Whereas courses you take within a graduate certificate program are in a specific focused area. But essentially, in general terms, they're the same. They're credit-bearing. They have the same rigor and the same homework assignments and exams, so they really are no different. Somebody else also asked, what's the difference between a graduate certificate and a professional certificate? Well, we are focusing on graduate certificates today, but I will say the difference is that professional certificates are not credit-bearing. They don't require you to follow the 10-week academic quarter. And, these professional certificates are typically pre-recorded and they're self-paced. So while we do have overlaps in artificial intelligence graduate certificate, for example, and a professional certificate, they are quite different. One is cohort-based, it's not. One is credit-bearing, one is not. So they are quite different. So that's that. One other question before I hand it back to Pax. We had somebody ask, can tuition be covered by staff given STRP funds? That's a program at Stanford. Yes, they can be. Certainly the non-degree program and the graduate certificate, as well as the degree program, are all covered by STRP funds. What I would encourage you to do is to contact that particular office and discuss what you might be thinking in terms of taking courses and programs.
Thanks, Jonathan. We had just a couple other questions that come in that I want to address. Most classes are 3 to 5 units. Computer science classes, if you're non-degree, a lot of them are variable units. If you're a non-degree student for the computer science classes, they must be taken at the maximum units. That is what they see as the actual units of work that's required. In terms of if you do the non-degree or you do a graduate certificate and you apply for a master's program, you are in the same admissions pool as all the other students who are applying for the master's degree. So it doesn't give you a special edge in that way, but it will be taken into consideration. You'll be able to submit a Stanford transcript. You may have relationships with some of the professors if you've taken courses and that's been available. So that it's not like you go into a separate pool and you're considered separately. You're in the same pool. And of course, these are incredibly competitive master's programs. But we do have plenty of students who have started as NDO students and moved on to either a master's or even a PhD program down the line. And it was an opportunity for them to test it out, to get a sense of whether the graduate study or whether Stanford would be right for them if they were admitted, and maybe to just get their feet on the ground if they've been out of school for a while, maybe make some connections with new faculty and just remember what it's like to be in the university. We had a question. If you are pursuing or you declare an interest in a particular graduate certificate, you're not locked into that graduate certificate. You don't have to, you have, I think, 3 years to complete the courses in that graduate certificate. And by the way, if you completed all those courses in 3 years, and then you could then tell us, hey, I've completed these courses, I'm interested in the graduate certificate, and we can then sort of apply. If you've completed the requirements, you would get the graduate certificate. But you're not locked in. So we have students who declare for a certificate, take one course, and then decide, you know what, I just want to take individual courses. And they can take, again, any course that there's a seat available and they meet the prerequisites, they would then, they would be able to take those courses. So you're not locked into a certificate program. It's not like a degree program. You're not admitted into it. It's really when you apply and you select what you're interested in, it's more a declaration of interest. And that allows us to track your progress, to send you as new courses are added or as courses become available for that certificate. Allows us to communicate that to you. But it's not like applying to a degree program where you're locked into a program and you have to follow it through.
We have a question here, Pax, which we get quite a lot, usually on a daily basis, and I want to address it. And I want to say this applies to a lot of the degree programs. The question was, can I complete a Stanford Computer Science graduate degree online? That's a good question. It's not an easy answer to give, but that really depends on which degree specialization you select and which courses you select. So there really isn't an easy answer to that. If you pick a certain specialization in computer science, It may not be possible to complete it online because the structure of courses might require labs, etc. Having said that, there are specializations that are more intuitive for online study. And again, with the Stanford degree, please realize that you have a depth and a breadth there. And so when you work with the academic department on your degree program plan and select courses, that the ability for you to complete it remotely is entirely based on that. So it really is, it's possible, but it really depends on which specialization you pick, which courses you pick. So that's the best answer we can give to that question.
And I just want to repeat, that's for degree programs, for master's programs. All the graduate certificates can be completed completely online, right? Those are fully online. And we are working, because this has actually come up amazingly. You would think everything's been online for a while, but we are working with the departments now to better communicate which depth areas and concentrations in particular programs can be completed fully online, right? And so again, and even when you can complete that depth area fully online, there are probably a lot of classes that you cannot complete, right? You're going to have a subset of the full classes in that depth area. So we're working on providing more information, working closely with the departments to make that possible, so you have a much better insight into it. But all sorry, go for it, John.
No, I was going to say another good question we just had, Pax, is, again, we get asked a lot about this. Do you provide a Stanford GPA and transcripts for certificate courses? Yes, if it's a credit-bearing course or if it's a graduate certificate, you will get a Stanford transcript, including the courses you complete, the grades you get, and the GPA you get. So that is all provided through the non-degree program, as well as the Office Core programs. Yes, you get that.
So I think you broke up a little bit. Just to repeat that, if you take a credit-bearing certificate course, you are earning a Stanford transcript with a grade, right? You will have a Stanford transcript. It'll say CS 109, what your grade, et cetera. And so, of course, it is academic credit and is potentially transferable to other universities as well. That'll depend on those universities' policies. But within Stanford, it would be if you were admitted to a program up to 18 units towards a master's program. But these are the credit-bearing courses. You are earning a Stanford transcript. Let's see here. I see there are a couple others. Let's see. Let me pause here. Any specific questions about I see a question about if you have a master's in another program, could you apply in CS? I would take a look at CS's page, right? And in terms of application deadlines for master's degrees programs, those will all be set by the department. They can vary a little bit. Some departments have different deadlines. For the non-degree option, you can essentially fill out the application at any time. But again, that application isn't reviewed until you enroll in your first course, right? So really, you can start taking courses any quarter that we're offering a course that you are approved for. So this summer, and we have registration that's open for the summer right now. We have a much smaller selection of classes than usual because summer is our smallest quarter. And you should see a link there that you can click on to see what's available this summer. So those. You could, if you have time, you could apply for that this week or tonight or whatever, and then your application would be sent to the department. They would review it. If you meet the prerequisites, they would approve you for the class. You'd get a seat in the course. You do have, I think it's 2 to 3 weeks at the beginning of the quarter where you can drop the course if you realize, whoa, I'm really not prepared for this, or this is way too much work for me. You have a time to drop the course. And Jonathan, there is a drop fee if you do it within those first 2 to 3 weeks. I think it's $100, but your tuition funds would be refunded. And you wouldn't have anything show up on you just wouldn't get a transcript. So, there would be no withdrawal or drop or something indicated on your transcript. Let me see here. We've got a lot more questions coming in. We're reaching about the end of time. We have some really good suggestions about how to do this better next time. I'm glad that a lot of people have found it useful, and we'll work on improving it. We will also, it sounds like there's some people would love to have more department-specific information. We'll see if we can do that. We have a question about MBA program. Stanford's Master's in Business Administration, it's not available online. What is available, what you can pursue or take classes online for are the GSB, the Graduate School of Business through Stanford, does have some executive and professional courses that are available online. And the Management, Science, and Engineering department within the School of Engineering does have classes that you can take online, and their master's degree is one that you can do through the HCP program, either part-time and or online. Let's see here. And again, maybe one thing to point out for the master's program, yes, and this session is being recorded. We'll send out a recording of this. We will be doing another version of the session later. This was kind of a first draft. We really appreciate also, we're getting a lot of feedback on how to improve that. Please send those in. We'll be doing another session of this. Let me see here. We got a question about courses that you can attend in person. Again, this, what makes this, most of these courses for non-degree students are just, the expectation is you would be doing it remotely, right? That is the expectation. And that the reason that is just that's what makes this program available to us. Let me see here. And so that's what makes it available. If you're an honors cooperative program student, if you're a part-time master's student, you're a fully matriculated student. And if you're in the Valley, I think with very few exceptions, you can just come on campus for any course, right? So you can take any course in person. The number of online courses that you can take are not greater. It's the same, the ones that are available to non-degree students, but you're enrolling through Stanford's access system, so you would be able to take in-person courses, right? And that actually is how that program used to really work when it was very much located in the Bay Area, is people would come on campus to take additional courses to fill it out. Maybe it's a lab course that just can't be held online. And I see a question about summer quarter. Summer quarter is shorter. It's 8 weeks. It is a little bit, and therefore it's the same material, so it's a little bit more intense. So that's something to keep in mind. That's a great question. We had an earlier question. We had mentioned that it's 10 to 25 hours a week. That's per course, or 15 to 25 hours per week. That's per course, right? These are really like a part-time job. And there are others that are less intensive, but for the most part, especially when you get to the upper division 200 level courses, they're a lot of work. There really are a lot of work. And especially if you're rusty on the prerequisites, you may end up spending a lot more time, reviewing your probability theory or reviewing your linear algebra or proofwriting or something like that. So these are very intensive programs. We won't make the slides available, but this recording will be available, and the slides are, essentially embedded in it. Do graduate courses constitute? Yes. So the graduate certificates are. So you take individual graduate courses. If you take 3 or 4 of these within a specialty that is part of one of our graduate certificates, then you would earn the certificate. So if they're all 4-credit courses, you're earning a transcript. The graduate certificates are accredited. They're non-degree programs. Is there an age limit to take courses? You do need a bachelor's degree. So I think that's it. That's really kind of the cutoff. Sample classes, great question. I think we have a link out to CS 229. You cannot audit classes through the non-degree program. However, on the Stanford Online YouTube channel, you can see recordings of a lot of the lectures. So if you're interested in what those lectures look like, if you're interested in the quality of the lectures and the content, those are all freely available. And we have those mostly for the artificial intelligence program. So CS2, machine learning, reinforcement learning, natural language processing, natural language understanding, meta learning, those are all courses that are available online. The lectures are available online at Stanford Online, so you can just go and watch those lectures. Probability and linear algebra. So we don't offer any linear algebra. We can provide you specific recommendations. There is a probability course, computer science for CS 109, which is probability for computer science, which would be if you're interested in taking a course in probability. Otherwise, we can make individual recommendations.
Hi, Pax. I hope I apologize for my audio issues. I hope you can hear me better now. There is a question about whether individuals qualify for certain programs. It's best to reach out to us in person via email or through one of our contact forms on our website. We'll be able to help you understand what you will or may not qualify for. So it's best that you reach out to us individually.
Thanks, Jonathan. And there's a specific question. There's a free Internet of Things course. There's no longer a certificate that's issued for that. So that should be clear, hopefully, on the course itself. That's just a free course. It's more like our professional courses. It's just a self-paced course. If you took the actual course with Professor Tabaji on the Internet of Things, you wouldn't get a certificate for a single course. You would get the certificate if you completed that as part of a larger certificate program. You would earn a transcript for taking that single course.
There's an excellent question, Pax, I think that's worth discussing real quick. There was a question about somebody who had taken prerequisites a while ago, and it's been some time, what would be required. Well, if you have a record of the prerequisites academically, then that qualifies you. But if it's been a while since you took the topic area, it may well be just beneficial to just do a quick, maybe online brush-up course, just to kind of refamiliarize yourself with the materials of prerequisites that you may have taken a while ago. That would be my best advice.
Yeah, and then we have a question about other opportunities, especially in software development outside of data science and machine learning. There are a lot out there. I would take a look at the computer science. We have the most support there, or most courses are offered through there. So foundations in computer science, there are advanced and there's software systems and advanced software systems. There's cybersecurity, there's databases. So all of those, I would just take a look at the offerings there. There's quite a bit of computer science classes. The free courses, how are free courses in preparing for taking a paid graduate or professional course? That's a good question. So I think if you don't, the ones that we offer, like the free ones we offer, I think if you don't already have a strong programming background, they're probably not going to help you. They're going to give you an interesting background and some, but they won't be as technical. They won't prepare you for the programming. We do have some professional artificial intelligence courses, a professional program in AI that are based on the graduate courses. Those are very rigorous. Those are also probably a 10 to 15-hour commitment a week. And those are ones that you could look at. They're a very different program. And we see we're getting questions about other informational sessions. We'll probably plan some that cover that will cover some of the other topic areas. I see just a question about Coursera, et cetera, as meeting a prerequisite. It's really going to depend on the department and who's reviewing it. It's really hard for us to say for certain. My general sense is if you wanted, you could probably, people ask about the foundations in CS. There are a lot of ways to cover the foundations in computer science. Just the kind of first 2 quarters of programming, those could be done through a community college. Maybe CS 106A could be done through a Coursera. But again, it's going to depend on the department. And even more than just the department approving it, you're going to want to make sure that you feel comfortable tackling the kinds of programming assignments that are going to come up in the more advanced classes. So potentially looking at the syllabi, which are usually available online for those courses, to really make sure that they're meeting, that. But so CS 106A, B, 103, 109, those are all, you can probably find the syllabi from current or previous classes available freely online. I would take a look at those and just see what the assignments look like, see what the expectations are. And I think that will give you a sense. I see about transferring units. Again, the master's, anything about the master's degree is going to come down to the department. And we mentioned, yeah. Okay, I think that's it. We're at time. I know there are a few questions we haven't answered. I really appreciate everyone joining. Thank you so much for your time. We hope this was useful. Again, go to the website. There is an inquiry form that we're linking to where you can submit questions. There's also just a lot of information there. And we'd love to hear from you. And we'll be doing another version of this, and we'll be improving it. We really appreciate the feedback. All right. Thank you, everybody.